Okay, good morning everyone. Let us start with our lecture. So we'll take an overview of your chapter 1. So the first we'll start with what is data. So when I talk about data, it is defined as facts related to any object. So when I talk about facts, that is nothing but your information related to any object. In database, whenever we talk about data, it is organized in the form of rows and columns and tables, and it is indexed so that it makes easier for us to find the relevant information. For example, data in database can be a customer database, which will have attributes like customer name, customer number, customer address, and so on. So without a data, you cannot create a database. So data is nothing but an information that describes more about the object. Okay, next we'll move to what is database. When I talk about database, it is defined as a systematic way to collect your data. Database is a collection of interrelated data which helps us in efficient retrieval, insertion, and deletion of data from databases, which are organized in the form of tables, views, and schemas. For example, a university database we can consider wherein the data will be with respect to students, the faculties, the admin, staff, etc. And later on we can do manipulation, insertion, deletion over that data in the databases. Next comes is your DBMS. So when we talk about DBMS, it is nothing but a computer software application that interacts with the end users or other applications, and the main functionality of DBMS is to capture and analyze the data. So when we talk about DBMS, we need to perform some steps while creating databases using the DBMS software. So what are the steps? Let us see. The very first step is creation of your database, wherein you will create your database. Second, retrieval of information from the database. Third, updating the database. Fourth, managing your database. So these are the four steps we need to perform while we are creating a database using DBMS softwares. Okay. So thus we can say that DBMS is nothing but a computerized record keeping system that allows us to define our data, create our data, update our data, query our data. Okay. The most common example of your DBMS can be your PostgreSQL, MongoDB, SQLite, MySQL, Oracle. Then you have IBM DB2. So these are some of the examples of database applications which are available. Okay, so we can conclude that database management system is a complex set of software programs that controls and organizes, stores, manages, and retrieve the data in database. Okay, so that's all. Let's move to the next. What are the problems with file systems? Okay, file systems is nothing but the traditional methods which were used initially for initially before database, you can say. Okay, so there were some problems with those file systems. Okay, so let us, what are the problems? Let us see each of them in detail. So the first problem was redundancy of data. Okay, since these were offline systems, the data was redundant in nature, which means that same copy of the data was stored at multiple places. Second, inconsistency of data. Inconsistency of data refers to multiple copies of the same data does not match with each other. Third, difficulty in data access. It refers to the user was not knowing the exact location of the file where to access data. Since there were many physical locations, there were not just single location, so it was difficult to access the data. So with this process, it would become a more tiring, as well as it would take more time. Next, unauthorized access. In file system, there was unauthorized access because the files were stored physically and anybody can have an access to that because no security was implemented over those files. Next, no concurrent access. So concurrency means what? The access of same data by multiple user at the same time. Okay, File system does not allow concurrency as data can be accessed by only one user at a time. Next, no backup and recovery. File system does not come up with backup and recovery because there is no online storage of the file. The storage was only in the form of offline. Okay, so if that particular file is lost or corrupted, then it is lost forever. Let us move to the next. Next is purpose of database system. Okay, as we all know that data has become an integral part of information system for decision making and managing the data. So we can say that data is resource for finding hidden facts and identifying the relationship between them. So there are many purpose and benefits of using the database system over a traditional method or a file system. So let us see what are the benefits. So the very first benefit or purpose is database system enables us to store and retrieve the database information that is both convenient and efficient. Second, databases are designed to manage simple and complex queries. Third, data consolidation. Data consolidation means all the data is stored at a single place or at centralized place. So it is very easy for you to see all the data and the decision making will be easier for us. Next, data can be shared across multiple users. With database system, with the concept of distributed database, your data can be shared across multiple users. Next, database enforces data integrity. Data integrity means what? The data correctness is enforces because of databases. All the data which is stored in your databases will be correct. It will be complete. There will be no missing data. So that is enforcing data integrity. Next, data security. With databases, you can have data security, you can have passwords, you can give different rights to different people. That can be done with the help of databases. Third, eliminate data redundancy. With constraints over the databases, the redundancy can be eliminated. Normalization is a concept which is used in database to remove redundancy that we shall be studying in the next chapters. So that helps you to remove the redundant data. Next, provides data backup and recovery. Since the databases is online, so you can store your database on different servers and you can easily backup them as well. Next, provide solution to concurrency and inconsistency issues. Database helps you to provide solutions because it doesn't allows concurrency. If multiple people are in case accessing the same piece of data, in that case also it will make sure that read permissions can be given to everyone, but the write permissions will be given to only the user, those who are authorized. Okay, inconsistency issues are formed. All the data which is inserted into database, they will make sure that there is no incomplete data entered into your system. All the data is complete, correct, and then only it is entered into your systems. Next, centralized access and control of data. In database, all the data is stored as your centralized in nature, okay, and the control of the data will be in the hands of the administrator or the person who is handling the database. There will be no multiple rights or control over the data. Next, data scalability, expandability, and flexibility. So with database, it becomes very easy for you to add more data to it. Okay, you can add servers that you can expand if you think that you need to do the same, and it is very flexible because you can access your database from anywhere. All you need that is required that you should know the correct mechanism to access them. Next, standards can be enforced. So with database, you can enforce standard that is in the form of your constraints, that is your primary key and foreign key. Next is your data independence, that refers to since your data can be distributed in nature, so your data can be accessed from anywhere. You can take or you can refer the data from anywhere. That is called as data independence. Okay. Last, it helps safety. Databases provide safety against your system failures or attempts at the time of unauthorized access. So if you have committed your transaction, so even if your system fails, all the committed data will be still there into your system and you can have an access to it. And it doesn't allows unauthorized access. Like if you are an authorized user, then too you have given rights that at least 3 times only you are allowable to put the ID and password. If you are doing it for the fourth time and if it is still incorrect, then the database gets locked. Okay, and it allows unauthorized access because it has many security mechanisms which helps or which protects us our unauthorized access. Okay, so this is nothing but the purpose of a database system. Why we need database system? These are the reasons why we need the database system. Okay, let us move to the next. What are the application areas? So when I talk about application areas, database is used almost in all the applications. So the very first we are looking out to it is your banking application. In banking application, all the transactions like creating account, creating users, managing the account details, managing the balance, all the transactions are saved into a databases. Okay, so in your databases you will have your customer databases where all the information related to the bank holders or customers will be saved, and accordingly it will really help them to make the decision making. Okay, next application which we are looking forward is airlines. Okay, airlines is also one of the prominent application wherein you can do any type of reservations, you can schedule your flights, all the information related to your airlines, your ticket booking, everything, your arrival status, you can come to know with the help of your databases. Next, universities. Nowadays, if you know that examinations are being conducted online, so all the universities need to maintain the record of the students. So with the help of database, they can have the information about the details. Okay, their results, their courses, and their grades, and all the information can be stored there. Next, sales. Sales is also one of the most important application in terms of database, wherein you can keep track of your customer information, the products they frequently purchase, their likings, their dislike. You can get an weekly information about your sales. You can have a profit calculation also. So you come to know that how much is your weekly sales, how much is your monthly sales, how much is your annual sales, and with that database you can get a proper report generation which gives a proper idea about your sales done throughout the year. Next is online retailers. As we know that everybody of us has moved online, so when we talk about online, it also needs a database where it tracks the details of the customers, tracks the detail of orders which are given by the customer, their recommendations. Okay, as you know, you can take an example of any Flipkart or any online application. So whenever you register a form, first place you all your information the stored get in your databases, and then once you make the purchases, with the help of database it gives you the tracking of your order, where your product has reached. Okay, if you like something, then there are some recommendations made by you that are also saved in your databases. So in case if you like any product and that is out of you can say not available, it is out of stock, so in that case whenever it comes back, the database will trigger an event and it will intimate you that the product is back and you can buy it now. Okay, so many managing of the task, order tracking, preferences management of the customer is done with the help of your databases. Next, we are moving to manufacturing. So when we talk about manufacturing, all your information related to your orders received, orders dispatch, inventory information, managing your supply chain activities, production information is managed by your databases. Last is your human resources. When we talk about human resources, it the refers to all the employee records, all the information related to their employee, that is employee ID, employee name, his designation, the company wherein he works, his salary, tax deduction, and so on. So all the information related to the employees is maintained by the HR department of every organization, and this information is readily available to us with the help of databases. Okay, so this is your application areas. So we can say that application areas of database have almost touched all the aspects of your life. Okay, so let us move to the next. Next topic is your database language. So when I talk about database language, it is categorized into following. The very first is your data definition language. So data definition language refers to creating your data, defining your data, altering your data. So the commands which are used for data definition are create command, alter command, drop command, rename or replace command, and truncate command. Okay. Next, we are moving to DML, that stands for Data Manipulation Language. So when I talk about data manipulation, it refers to manipulating your data. That is, it can be in terms of adding or making changes to your existing data. So the command used for DML is your insert command, update command, and delete command. Next comes your DCL, that stands for Data Control Language. So whenever you want to have a control access over your database, whenever you want to give rights to your user, in that case you will use DCL, that will have a control over your database by giving rights to different people. So the command used here is grant and revoke. When I talk about grant, it refers to giving permission. When I talk about revoke, it refers to taking the permission back. Next is your TCL, that is your transaction control language. So when I talk about transaction control language, it is used whenever you are completing your transaction. Whenever any transaction is completed successfully, then it comes under your TCL, that is transaction control language, which works with your asset property. Okay. So when I talk about asset property, A stands for atomicity, C stands for consistency, I stands for isolation, D stands for durability, that we are going to look in the next coming slides. Okay. Along with asset property, you have methods which are used as rollback, that is moving back to the original form, commit, saving your any successful transaction, and save point is nothing but once you have committed or saved any successful transaction, then you can save point, make a point there, or you can make a some marking over it, that is your save point. Last is your DQL, that is data query language. So whenever you want to query the language using database language, then you use DQL. Okay, so that is your database language. Let's move to the next. Next comes is your level of abstraction. Okay, level of abstraction, degree of abstraction, view of data, all is one and the same. Okay, so when I talk about abstraction, it refers to what information you want the user to see, abstracting, showing and the information. Okay, so levels of abstraction at times is also referred as your three-tier architecture, and it is used for database design. Okay, so it has three levels. So your level one is your physical level, your level two is your logical or conceptual level, and your level three is your external or view level. Okay. So when we talk about physical level, it describes the physical storage structure of data in databases. Okay. At times it is also referred as internal level. Okay. And this level is very close to your physical storage of data. So wherever your data is stored physically, that is referred as your physical level. Okay. At lowest level, it is stored in the form of bits with physical addresses on your secondary storage devices, and at the highest level, it can be viewed in the form of files. The internal schema, or you can say your physical schema, defines the various stored data types, and it uses a physical data model. Okay. Next comes as your conceptual level or your logical level. So when you talk about conceptual level, it describes the structure of the whole database for a group of users. So in conceptual schema, basically we represent the entire content of the database, that is your database attributes, their values, and the relationship among them. Okay. This schema contains all the information that helps us to build external records. That is nothing but your view level. Okay. Last is your external or view level. So external level is related to the data which is viewed by individual end users. This level includes number of user views or external schemas, and this level is the closest to the user. Okay. So when I talk about external view, it describes the segment of database that is required for a particular user group and hides the rest of the database from that user group. So in short, when I talk about view level, that is what view you want the user to see. According to that, you are going to create the views. Like for example, on the slide here, I have created a logical record one where I'm showing just name and address to my user one, wherein in the logical record 2, the user 2, I'm showing the name. Okay, I'm showing the section number, address, and basic salary. So in short, when I talk about views, according to the user, you can create the view and you can show them. Okay, because we cannot show all the details to everyone. According to the users, we have to create the views and we have to show the data to them. Okay, so last we can conclude that when I talk about physical data, it refers to define how the data is stored. When I talk about conceptual or logical schema, it defines the data in terms of your data models. When I talk about external schema or view level schema, it defines us as a number of simplified domain specific views. Okay, so that is your levels of abstraction, degree of abstraction or view data. Next, we are moving to your relational databases. Relational databases was the concept proposed by E.F. Code in 1970. Okay, and he says that whenever we talk about a relational database, the data has to be in a form of rows and columns. Okay, so when I talk about rows, they are also called as records or tuples, and when I talk about columns, they are also called as fields or attribute values. And when we these tables are joined together and they are creating any relations, then they are called as relational databases. Okay, so as per the slide, you can see there are two tables here. One is your student table and one is your subject table. So under your student table, you have fields, that is your student ID, student name and student age. Where in your subject table, you have subject ID, subject name and the teacher name. So whenever you are combining these two tables and creating the third table, that is student ID of student table, subject ID of subject table, and the marks of every student with the subject ID which they have secured, makes your marks table. So relational table means database means what? It is creating some relations between your tables, and with the help of that relations you can create another set of table. Okay, so that is your relational databases. So advantages of your relational databases is it supports data independence. Okay, it can allow multiple users can access the data, which is not possible in your simple DBMS. It uses an object oriented programming concept. Okay, disadvantages can be it cannot handle special databases. Special databases is nothing but the databases where you store your geographical locations or your special information, that is your special databases. Okay, it cannot support uh, complex objects like your documents, images, and video. So relational database can support only your information related data where the information comes from two or more tables. Okay. Let us move to the next. Next topic which we are moving to is your CORDS 12 rule. Okay, so Dr. E.F. Code has come up with the two CORDS 12 rule. So whenever any database is said to be relational database, only when it follows this 12 rules. Okay, so let us start with the rule number 1, which says your information rule. So when I talk about information rule, it says what? That in a relational database model, all the information should be explicitly and logically represented by the data in the form of tables. So any information which you are representing in your relational database has to be in the form of rows and columns only. Okay. Second, rule number 2, guaranteed access rule. So guaranteed access rule says that every single data element or value which you want to access can be accessed only when it is in the combination of your table name, your primary key, and the attribute name. Okay. No other mechanisms such as pointers can be used to access the data. Next, rule number 3, systematic treatment of null values. So the null values in the database must be given a systematic and uniform treatment. This is very important rule because null value means what? Either the data is missing, either the data is not known to you, or the data is not applicable. So the standard mechanism which is used is by writing null null when you have any of these cases. Next is rule number 4, that is your active online catalog. So active online catalog is nothing but just like your data dictionary. Okay, so all your description of the database are stored and maintained in the form of tables, and this allows the users with an appropriate authority to query the information using the same language. And this implies that the data dictionary should be also present within your RDBMS. So whenever you talk about constructing the information from this data dictionary, so we are using in a language that is called as your SQL language. Rule number 5 is your comprehensive data sublanguage rule. So RDBMS should allow managing all the transactions, you can say, your all the tables through its extension language, that is nothing but your SQL. So your SQL supports your data definition, your views, your data manipulation, your integrity constraints, and the transaction information. Next, rule number 6, it says that view updating rule. So any view that can be defined using combination of the base tables is also updated, and it should be capable of being updated by RDBMS also. Rule number 7, high level insert, update and delete. So as we know that RDBMS should not just help you to retrieve the data from data sets or databases, but it should also do much more than that. So that is nothing but possible to insert, update and delete the data items from your relational databases. Next, rule 8, that is your physical data independence. So when I talk about physical data independence, it refers to ability to modify the physical schema without causing your application programs to be rewritten. However, if we see that even if your physical storage changes or access methods changes, it doesn't require any other application program to be manipulated. Next, logical data independence. Logical data independence refers to ability to modify the conceptual schema without causing any changes in the schema followed at the view level. For example, if there are two tables are merged or one is spread into two different tables, there should be no impact or change on the user application. So this is like one of the most difficult rules to be applied. Rule number 10, integrity independence. Integrity constraints that are specified in your relational databases must be also definable in the SQL and some other sub-data languages. Okay, so when we talk about integrity constraint, they must be stored into the catalog but not in the application programs. Next, rule number 11, that is your distribution independence. An RDBMS must be have an RDBMS must have your distribution independence. So it means what? Your data can be distributed across multiple platforms or computers. However, the platforms can be heterogeneous in nature in terms of your hardware and operating system. So this is like one of the most attractive features of your DBMS, where it allows the distribution independence. Next, rule number 12, that is your non-subversion rule. It says that if the RDBMS supports facilities that allows your application programs to operate on a table, a row at a time, then any application using this type of database access is prevented from bypassing the integrity constraints, and they may be defined for the database. Okay, so let us move to the next. Next, we have your database architecture. So when we talk about database architecture, that is nothing but the design of your databases. Okay, so how your database is designed, whether it is centralized in nature, whether it is decentralized, or whether it is hierarchical. So when we talk about database architecture, it can be divided into three types: single tier architecture or one tier architecture, two-tier architecture, three-tier architecture, or there can be also n-tier architecture. So when we talk about n-tier architecture, it is nothing but that divides the whole system into related but independent n number of modules. Okay, so which can be independently modified, altered, changed, or replaced. Okay, so we will start with the very first, that is called as single tail architecture. So when I talk about single tail architecture, your server and your client work as one only. They are just working as a one platform, so that are called as single tier architecture. This is one of the most simple architecture to be come up with, and when you have to do very low level of trans application work, then this is suggested for you, because most of the developers who are working over the small application, simple application, they always go for this option where client and server are on the same machine and they can do the task easily. Okay, but the problem with this is like this type of architectures is not suitable for delivering your data on platforms like websites which works globally. Okay, so it is works for only a small level task where you have just simple applications and that does not require much processing. Okay, if you start loading your more data into your this architecture, the system will start lagging, because what happens, your client and server both are at one place, they are not divided. Okay, so it has, the single system has to work as a client also and has to work as a server also. Okay, so if more processing is done over this type of architecture, then the system becomes very slow. And the problem with this system is like there you if this system goes down, then entire system goes down. Okay, because both the system works are acting one as a system. Okay, they are working as a client also and they are working as a server also. Okay, next comes is your two-tier architecture. Okay, where in the one-tier architecture your client and server just a single machine. Now in two-tier architecture there are two different machines, that is why they are called as two-tier architecture. So the communication now is between a client and the server. Okay, the client is where the data needs to be delivered and the server is where the data is can be stored, it can be updated, it can be processed, and the communication can take place between your client and server. The application tier here is at the database end, okay, which does the application logic task. Okay, so with this two-tier architecture, it becomes very easy for managing. We can do the processing of the information properly, as they both are managing at different tiers. So it is becomes very easy for you to manage the Next comes is your three-tier architecture. Okay, so when I talk about three-tier architecture, it is divided into three layers. That is, first is your client layer or presentation layer, second is your application layer, and third is your database layer. Okay, so in three-tiered architecture, you are dividing your tiers into three parts. Okay, and at times this is also referred as a distributed architecture. So at database tier architecture, your raw data is present along with the database system language, and its queries are there, which allows us to perform different operations on your databases. Okay. Next is your application tier. This acts as an intermediary between your database tier and the user or presentation tier. The code level program that can access the database for various operations is actually at the application layer. Okay, for example, if you want to write a code for updating the email ID in database, in that case the user is not interacting with the database directly, but first it will interact with the application tier, which does it codes level processing, and then it will interact with your databases. Okay, next is your presentation layer. This is also known as user tier or client tier. Okay, here the user is able to view all the database result best often in the viewable form. Okay, if the user is accessing its profile page, then all the details were sent from database to the application tier, and then it is sent to the presentation tier, which then displays the same in the view so that user can understand and can read it. Okay, so you can use various front-end languages like HTML, CSS that can modify and tells you how the data can be look in the best possible way to your end users. Next topic which we are looking forward is your transaction management. Okay, so whenever we talk about transaction, it is nothing but a group of tasks. Okay, a single task is the minimum processing unit which cannot be divided further. So this is called as your atomic. Okay. So but when we talk about transaction, it can be defined as a group of tasks, and each of the tasks can be performed individually so that you can see the updates. Okay. So as you can see an example, you want to transfer money from your bank account to your friend's account. So what the set of operations you like to perform here? First, your step will be what? You will read your account balance. Second, you will deduct the amount from your balance. So if your friend says any amount, that amount will be deducted here. Okay. Step number 3, write the remaining balance to your account. After deduction, what balance you are seeing in your account. Fourth, once it is deducted from your account, you will tell your friend to check his account balance. Fifth, add the amount to his account balance. Once he check the balance, he will update you that his account balance has been updated with the amount and it has been received. And finally, step number 6 is the last, wherein you both will see the updated balance. You will see the debited account and he will see the credited account. So this is the step of transactions. You have to always note that in transaction, all the transactions has to be executed one by one so that your database will be in the consistent state. Now the question arises, if your transaction fails in between, then which operations you have to do, how you're going to solve this. Okay, so even in case if your transaction fails in between, so you have two operations with you. Okay, there is your commit and second is your rollback. Okay, basically, if to be very logical, the main problem that can happen during a transaction is that the transaction fails at times before finishing all the operations. Okay, the reasons can be due to your power failure, due to your sudden system crash. So this is a very serious problem, and this can leave your databases in your inconsistent state. Okay, for example, let us assume that the transaction fails after the third operation. Okay, that is the last example we have seen. That is like your amount have been deducted from your account, but your friend have not received it. Okay, so if this scenario comes into you, so how you're going to solve this problem? So to solve this problem, we have two operations. First is your commit and second is your rollback. Okay, so commit says what? If all the operations in the transactions are completed successfully, then commit those changes to the database permanently. Okay, I'll repeat again. If all the operations in the transactions are completed successfully, then commit those changes to the database permanently. Okay, whereas rollback says what? If any of the operation fails, then roll back all the changes done by the previous operations so that you can ensure that there is a data integrity during the transaction. Okay, so these are the two methods which can be used in case if your transaction fails in between, and both of them assures that your data is in the consistent state. Your database will be consistent only if you commit all your successful transaction, or in case if your transactions have failed, then you can go for a rollback operation. Okay, in transaction, one of four properties which are very much important is your asset properties. Okay, wherein asset properties is as follows. The first is A, that stands for atomicity. So this property states that a transaction must be treated as an atomic unit, that is, either all of its operations are executed or none of the operations are executed. Okay, so there should be no state in a database where a transaction is left partially completed. Okay, so states can be defined either before the execution of the transaction or after the execution of the transaction. Okay, so whenever your transactions are successful, you have to commit them, so save them, or in case if your transactions are unsuccessful, then don't go for commit, just keep it the way it is and you can roll back your database to the original form. Okay, second is your consistency. So data consistency refers what? Your data must be in a consistent state after any transaction. Okay, so no transaction should have an adverse effect on the data which is residing in their databases. Okay, so your database should be in consistent state before the execution of the transaction, and it should remain consistent even after the execution of the transaction. Okay, so this is possible when you have only committed data into your system, you have only successful data into your system, then only you can achieve this consistency state of your databases. Next comes is your isolation. Okay, so in database, isolation refers to that one transaction is being executed simultaneously and in parallel. Okay, so the property of isolation states that all the transaction will be carried out and executed as if it is only the transaction in the system, so that your transaction will not have effect on the other transactions which are happening. Okay, so it will, the isolation states what, that all the transactions will be carried out and executed only if it is only the one transaction in the system. Next, durability, that is the last property. So durability states what? Your database has to be durable enough to hold all the latest updates even if the system fails or restart. Okay, so this is possible only when you have committed all your transaction. All the committed transaction will remain same in your databases even if in case if your system fails or if your system restart. Okay. Next comes is your transaction states. Okay, so when we talk about transaction state, it has the following states as shown in the diagram. It has an active state, it has a partially committed state, it has committed state, it has failed state, it has aborted state. So let us take each of them in detail. Okay, so whenever you start your transaction, it has two major states, that is a begin state and the end state. Okay, so when we talk about begin state, it refers your initial transaction, your starting or commencement of the transaction. So at this stage, the first state of your transaction will be what? Active state. Okay, so in this state, the transaction is being executed, and this is the initial state of every transaction. Okay, next is your partially committed state. Okay, so partially committed means what? When a transaction executes its final operation, it is said to be in a partial committed state. Next is your committed state. So committed state is nothing but if a transaction executes all its operations successfully, then it is said to be committed state. Okay, so once you have committed your transaction, all the effects are now permanent and the same can be seen in your databases. Next, you have your failed state. So when you talk about failed state, a transaction can be said to be failed in the state if any of the checks that is made by your database's recovery system fails. Okay. Always remember, a failed transaction cannot proceed further. It will stop there and there itself. Next, you have aborted. So if any of the check fails and the transaction has reached a failed state, then the recovery manager rolls back all its write operations on the databases and brings the database back to its original form where it was prior to the execution of your transaction. So transaction in this state are called aborted. Okay, so when you talk about this database recovery model, it can have any of the two operation after the transaction aborts. Either it will restart the transaction or either it will kill the transaction. Okay, kill the transaction means that your transaction has ended forever, and restart means it is trying to restart your entire transaction. Okay, so this is your all your transaction state, that is your active state, partially committed, committed, failed, aborted. Okay, so that's all for the day. Next lecture we'll start with the chapter number 2. Thank you everyone.